Hey there, welcome back to a After the Sermon podcast, this series where we look at the text of scripture that we studied out on Sunday and just give a little more information, a little more background, reminder of some application and just some things that you can't always cover on a Sunday morning in that time. So I am Pastor Ben here with Pastor Matt.
Hey guys.
And we have been doing just this short series in Ephesians leading up to what's going to be a little bit more substantial series also in Ephesians eventually.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to getting into the armor of God and just working through this text that we've been memorizing and will continue to memorize over the course of this year. But right before it happens, the Lord gives us wisdom on marriage, parenting, and work.
Yes, work, our favorite thing to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of work, how was Wyoming?
It was great. It was cold, but like in a refreshing way. And I got to play in the snow.
Yeah.
I got to drive in the snow, which was not so much fun.
Yeah.
And the students out there, it was great to just give them a fresh perspective. They got to do some things that they don't always have access to out there, and they're not used to having someone come and play the piano and have them do silly things with their voice.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a fun work trip, which is always, those are the best ones, where you can just enjoy where you're at, but also get to do some unique things while you're there.
Yep, and also got to see it's like one of the first places where they found dinosaur fossils, so that was fun too.
Oh, interesting. Did we find out what happened to them?
They worked too hard.
That makes sense.
Themselves to death, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably why they were dinosaur from after all their working.
Yeah.
We've been gone for a couple weeks from the podcast, and that was a bad joke. That was bad, but here we are.
Ephesians 6, getting a little bit past the verses about family. We read through verses 5 through 9, just that next section there. So what do we see? What's going on in this text?
Yeah, so you would think, going from marriage to parenting to bondservants, that there is a big disconnect. But for the culture back then, a bondservant or a slave was considered part of the family. Not in the greatest of sense, though, but it was lots of shared and common culture. So these three topics, marriage, parenting, and work, went hand in hand for the Church of Ephesus. And it all, again, falls into the context of what does Christian submission look like, where God has placed us, and how do we respond to the human authority in our lives. And so we get this text, and obviously, as I mentioned on Sunday, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it here, that this is not a proof text or the Bible's way of saying that slavery is okay. Like, human slavery in any form is not good, especially if there's mistreatment and harm given to another human made in the image of God. So this is not in support of that, but how do you respond in these situations? And so for us, we are not dealing with being in slavery. So what is the application for us in the 21st century in Clay County, Florida? And that's where that application pushes us to work. And what does that look like? Because we are responsible for how we respond to our boss at work and how we are to work and submit to him, to submit to them. And even if we are a boss and we have people that are under our authority, how we are to treat them. And this is just a small glimpse of even what the book of Philemon talks about, and just some cultural help there. And so that's where we get to the application of what does our life look like when it comes to work, and how do we work for the glory of God as we submit to Christ in this matter.
Yeah, and it starts out just with that. Again, it's not a how, or it's tackling the heart issue, right? It's not saying do your best, do it with excellence. Not that we don't do these things, but it starts with obey with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It applies to whatever work you have. It's not
Right. There's always there's always someone when you're working, there's always someone you are answering to. Even the people highest up in a company are probably answering to a board of directors of some sort. And so you're answering. So how do you respond to that? And in this case, it's, yeah, look at your heart, being obedient in a way that honors the Lord, and to do with respect and honor towards them, meaning it's not just do your job with a bad attitude, it's do your job with a good attitude. Go to work and accomplish what you need to do, and do it from a heart that desires to honor the Lord. And so the help here is very practical for us today as we go to work, and probably working for, I don't, but a lot of people work for people who are the worst. So how do you manage that? How do you respect them even though they're still maybe degrading or tearing you down? And this text just help frees us, I think, to some extent, that God's told them what they should do, but he's also told me what to do, and I'm going to respond with a Christ-like heart.
Yeah, and that's always the hardest part, is remembering that it's always a submission out of an authority that God has established.
Correct.
And even if we don't agree with the person, if we don't like the person or think that what they're doing is, in some ways, it's saying that then God put this person in charge wrong.
And there's at times where a boss will tell you to do something, and maybe you have a better idea or you don't like the approach. And I don't think it's just saying, hey, shut up and be quiet and go to work. I think there's a way to address it. Just saying, hey, based on my experience or what I know, and giving them, don't just telling them they're wrong, but showing examples why, bringing information to the table, and just saying, hey, do with this what you want. And if they say, that's great, let's do it this way. Or if they say, no, we're going to do it the way I want to do it, then you say, okay, I will get it done. But if it's not on you if it falls flat, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But that type of boss is probably going to come back and blame you for it anyways. And then at that point, you just say, all right, my heart, I'm going to seek to glorify the Lord in this, while I pursue looking for a new job. And so I think so often we can easily just not respect the person that has the authority over us at work, because we think we can do it better. We don't think they know what they're talking about. And so that begins to produce bitterness and anger and laziness and pride in our hearts. And that's not the place for someone who is living in submission, because that's not the place of the Christian towards Christ.
Yeah, and then the flip side of that coin that the next part of the text also addresses is when we're in the position of being in charge, of having the authority, of having people under us that we've got to manage or lead or whatever situation. God has placed us in that position.
Correct.
So, if we can feel the weight of, okay, so if God has me here, then I've got to make sure that I'm representing the person who's really in charge anyway, and not be stuck in my own way.
I think just like husbands, just like parents represent Jesus, the boss, the master that operates from the same standpoint of Jesus are the best managers to work for. Because this is God's design. If the person over me, I know, is a listener, he or she is wanting to listen to my ideas and is moving forward, is caring for me, but also lovingly corrects like Jesus does, then they're great to work for. It's the ones that he says that are threatening. If you don't do this, you're going to get fired. That are always just tearing you down. It's not helpful, which is why the language in parenting is bring up your children. It's the husbands. It's love your wives. This is all Jesus does for us. So the perspective of the master here, the boss, is, hey, you want your employees to thrive? Be the greatest boss they've ever had and look like Jesus. And that's it. Obviously, in the confines of how the company is structured, but it's not letting them do whatever they want to. There's guidance and direction and help. And so this is a great model for people who have authority over someone else in a workplace. And if you're wanting to move up the ladder at work, you model this now, right? Like, you, even as the lowest person in the company, you model this. And I think the Lord honors that. This is his design for work.
Yeah, there's something that's going to be said too. Again, if we look at the text on the surface and we're talking about masters and slaves or masters and bondservants, and again, we know that's not the situation that we deal with today. But this idea of being a master of your domain, master of your craft, master of your technique, right? Being able to be an authority not just positionally, but in your ability, your capacity, your capability.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have authority and abuse it. They just love the idea of just being in charge. That's why HOA presidents are the worst, right? I don't think we have any in our church, but if we do,
not anymore.
And they're the worst. I hope they read through Ephesians 6:5-9. But I don't even think it's something you should long to have authority. It's if I do, I'm gonna honor it, steward it well.
Yeah, and it's ultimately, you alluded to this earlier, whatever your work environment is, whether it's your own personal business, a corporate thing, whatever situation, and whatever your position is on the totem pole of the pipeline there, we have the ability as Christians to enhance what's going on when we follow God's plan for the authority structure and the attitude towards work.
Yeah, this is God's good design. And so for Christians, we should live in it, especially when you think that work was created. And I mentioned this in the sermon. Work was created for our good and God's glory before sin entered into the world. I think there's this misconception that sin is a byproduct, or work is a byproduct of sin. That's not the case. I think work is difficult and more challenging because of sin. Adam's work changed, but he was to care for his wife and be a steward of God's creation, and that command still stayed, but now it's, okay, now you're going to deal with thorns and pains, and this is not going to be easy, and you're going to sweat, and you're going to try to accomplish things, and you're going to work your whole life, and it feels like you're not accomplishing much, because this is the result of living in a fallen world. And so why work can become so frustrating and angry, make you angry, because often we're trying to navigate it outside of God's design. And this text, and Paul helps us. This is what work looks like inside God's good created order.
And that's why we have work orders, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Now, we've been talking about, we'll flip the script here a little bit because we wanted to talk about this in the last few minutes. So when people ask me what my job is, I love getting to be one of the pastors of Grace Life Church. And so you carry a lot of responsibility, but from a full-time, most of my hours are committed to Grace Life. People ask, the kids asked early on, Dad, who's your boss? And I'll be like, Jesus is, first and foremost, okay? But I'm also responsible to you as a fellow elder and to the congregation. And so I think for us, as pastor elders, this text applies. It's, hey, we're not domineering, even as we're leading our leadership team and doing it out of love, and they're volunteers. So there's often I tell them, like, man, I can't make you do this, but how do we navigate that? But a couple years ago,
we will double your bonus.
We will double your bonus, which is crowns in heaven. So that's not a bad bonus, and it's non-taxable too. You can take that how you want. But a couple years ago, you have been doing this for years now. But a couple years ago, I really started working more consistent hours outside of Grace Life Church. So I have a job outside of my role as a pastor. And so I've been doing like side things like graphic design, some websites, different odds and ends, just to make some cash on side. But after COVID, things changed, and I started working for the North American Mission Board in 2023. So we are what would be called a bivocational pastor, which the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it doesn't negate our role as pastors. I'm still working 40 hours a week as a pastor, but now on top of that, I have 29 hours throughout the week that I'm working for the North American Mission Board. And so it has been a good reminder for me having a boss who has just texted me while we've been recording this. So it's been a good reminder of, hey, this is what Ephesians 6:5-9 looks like. It's, hey, getting your job done. There's HR now that I'm navigating and annual reports, and so it's been really good and also refreshing, just getting to learn new skills and different things because God's created work for our good. And so we've been navigating. We talk a lot about that, the challenges of being a bivocational pastor and what that means. But ultimately, all of work, no matter what you do, where it is, how it's accomplished, what shift, is to be done for the glory of the Lord. So there's no vocational, like being a pastor is not better than being anything else. It's just a different calling. And so if you think, man, I can't, my work won't be complete unless I'm going to be a pastor, guess what? It's not going to be complete then either. Like, that's what I thought after I left non-ministry work to be a pastor. It still fell short. It still was not satisfying. And so if someone's thinking, man, if I was full-time church ministry, man, I would always go to work happy. All the same feelings you have during the week of, I want to quit, this is frustrating, they don't leave. It's just, it looks different. And so that's why this reminder in Ephesians 6 is so helpful, because it's so generic. Wherever you find yourself, don't just work when the boss is looking. Don't just work the bare minimum, and don't do it for your own glory. Do it for the glory of the Lord. I don't know if you'd add anything else to that piece of it, the bivocational side of things, but it is a privilege and joy to say that, to get to serve the Lord in the church, but to also continue to work outside for His glory outside of it.
Yeah, well, I think just because of my path to getting there, and not that this is always the case and it lives out perfectly, but when you're finding that stride of giving glory to God in whatever work, people notice something different about you. They can't always put their finger on it. Again, when you're pastor, people go, oh, of course. And again, not that you're doing that perfectly either, but the natural inclination is, of course, they're doing this for God. That's what literally the job would not exist without that. But having that changed perspective of no job exists without at the end of Ephesians 6, that even when you're the master, there's a master above you.
Yeah.
And so just the times when it can be frustrating or bogged down or just feel you can't wait to get to the next vacation, of just taking that step back and remembering who really is in control and who's gifted you and brought you to the places that you are in order to do the work that's there.
Yeah, it's a reminder, and as I mentioned, the giftings and skills that we have, we may have worked hard and developed them, but it's God who gave them to us in the first place and wired us this way. The money we earn, God owns everything, and all of it is for His glory. And I think it does two things. One, I think it makes work more enjoyable, and when your heart is postured in a Christ-centered manner, but also it frees you up to lay your head down at night and just say, okay, I'm going to bed. This is one of the things that I recommend this book all the time, Redeeming Your Time by Jordan Rayner. And in it, he says there's only one person who always gets their daily to-do list done, and it's God. And so if you are trying, working to get everything done, like if you're trying to find your sense of purpose in your work, it's going to fall short and leave you wanting something more. And so work is designed to turn our eyes to Jesus. It also reminds us how much rest we need. You can't burn the candle on both ends, right? And so that's something I have to navigate as I working a lot of hours. And am I resting? How am I resting? What does that rest look like? And so I just shift, like I changed the brakes this past week, and I found that restful because it's working with my hands and not with my brain or my mouth. I just sat there and changed them, and it was enjoyable. I found it restful. Mowing the grass is the same thing for me. So rest is not always just taking a nap, but it's a reminder that if our work becomes center, it'll fall short and burn us out. And if we are lazy, in our work, it'll fall short and maybe produce anxiety or all sorts of things. And God has a good design for it, and we should live in it.
Any other last thoughts from the text or looking forward in the next few weeks?
I do find it just a great segue from marriage to parenting to work, where we go into the armor of God and it just says, finally, be strong in the Lord in the strength of his might. And it did not come after just some random section. It's closing out the book. But it's just this reminder, man, if our marriages, our families, our work are going to thrive, and we have to stand in the strength of the Lord. And so when there are seasons that's super busy, this February was really busy for me. January and February, just on all fronts. And when Grace Life is really busy and NAM is really busy, it's nuts. And you're aware of all the different ins and outs of all that. But what I've enjoyed this year through that is when I'm tired and when I'm a little stressed out, and I don't get stressed out. And so when I get a little stressed out, Ephesians 6:10 says, hey, we don't stand in our own strength. We stand in the strength of the Lord in all areas of life. As we fight against sin, we don't fight against flesh and blood. And so I'm looking forward to the armor of God. Hey, let's attack all of life with the good tools that God's given us.
Yeah, it's good stuff. We'll look forward to seeing you in life groups this week, getting back into that rhythm for the rest of the semester, and just really taking that time to get to know each other, not just hanging out, not just studying the Bible, but connecting together and growing together in that. And as always, if you need anything, please reach out, let us know. We're happy to help. Easter coming up, we know that's some great gospel opportunities, and so whatever we can do to help equip you and just give you the tools that you need in order to share God's grace with every life. And Lord willing, we will look forward to gathering in together next Sunday.